back. AWS On Air. We are live here at Inforce in Philly. So my name is Sydney Studi. I am joined by Jasmine, Shannon, and Ben. Let's do a quick round of intros, shall we?
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm one of your AWS OnAir hosts.
I'm Shannon. I am an incident responder with the customer incident response team.
And I am Ben. I'm also a incident responder with the AWS customer incident response team.
Very cool. Well, thanks for being here. So on this session, we're going to talk about how you can leverage threat intelligence on AWS. So let's jump in. So Shannon, can you tell us a bit about what threat intelligence is and its role in security?
Yeah, so threat intelligence is, it's a really interesting concept, but it's more than that. It's a lot of it's a different type of information. It's a collection. It's a just an analysis of information of potential or current threats that could impact an organization. It's a collection of information on specific events or even specific threat actors or groups that are that can and could threaten your organization.
Got it. Yeah, got it. That sounds really important. So that includes like what kinds of information are we looking at?
So that could include from like high-level TTPs, so tactics, techniques, and procedures, essentially like their methods, like signature moves that a threat actor would do, or even their motives. So what are they going for? There are certain types of threat actor groups that will focus on specific organizations because that's their bread and butter. So they have specific moves that they do because they expect specific types of data and a structure within those organizations. And then you can even go even granular than that, where it's very specific IP addresses, user agents, known malicious indicators of compromise that will help you kind of conduct the analysis within your logs and keep track of their movements.
Got it. So we might be thinking, like, as an audience, like, okay, we're at Reinforce, we're talking about security, so what does threat intel have to do with any of this? Well, there's an AWS service that has threat intel involved, right? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Ben?
So, yes, we run the AWS Customer Incident Response team, and what we do is we help customers on their side of the shared responsibility model. So if there's a security misconfiguration that has been exploited, or you suspect a security incident, just raise a ticket, and we're a team 24/7 around the world, and we'll jump on a call with you if needed and talk you through it.
Yeah, and so I believe there's a service that has threat intel integrated into it, right? There's a monitoring service.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us
mean,
about it.
we use, let me just unlock my screen here. I'll quickly show you what that looks like. This service is called GuardDuty. GuardDuty is, it uses threat intelligence, not only from what we put into it, so we have various service teams that work with our team to help create and curate these findings, but also you can also use your own findings as well. Whether you have your own threat intelligence team, you can import those findings into GuardDuty, or you can subscribe to a feed, such as like FireEye has a feed, Alien Vault has another feed, and all of these things. And I don't have any findings here today, but I can actually create some. And here's a really cool way for you to be able to test what your services are doing and how it'll look like to receive these findings. If you generate a sample findings, which actually takes a couple seconds, it gives you a really good visual of what they'll look like coming in. So as you can see here, if you go into summary, it gives you quite a bit. It gives you all of the different types of findings, and you can really see what they look like. You can deep dive into them. And the whole reason why I really like this service is because it doesn't just stop at that finding and saying, hey, we found something. It gives you the resources, the container, like details about what it actually found. And so it gives you those pieces, that puzzle piece to actually start your analysis. A lot of times when we receive an incident from a customer, they don't know where to start. They're like, I think this happened.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to start. I don't know what logs I need. But when you have something like GuardDuty that's taking all of the threat intelligence that we're putting into it, that we've collected, that we've been able to see throughout the AWS landscape, it gives you that information. So here, you know that it's, you can see the container information. You can see, for example, the instance ID. So you can start by going into your EC2 instance and being like, that's the one. What do I need to do from there? And there's a lot of documentation to continue forward, but also it has the IAM instance profile, so you can also review if there's a compromise in the instance profile. You can also review maybe your network interfaces are not configured properly, or maybe your security groups are too open.
Yeah.
So it really gives you the starting point instead of just letting you guess. Takes the guesswork out, essentially.
So you mentioned documentation, and then Ben, you also mentioned, hey, you can cut a ticket to the security incident response or the customer incident response team. If I come in here and I'm looking at guard duty and I see hi, is that when I cut a ticket?
So
Good question.
It's a brilliant question. There always needs to be customer context in terms of this. So a high may be considered high on guard duty, but actually in terms of your environment and what you're concerned about, it may be something that you expect to happen. So if you don't know, absolutely cut a ticket. But what you want to do is eventually be able to sort of narrow down those guard duty alerts, suppress the ones that aren't actually relevant,
Yeah.
so it allows your team to stay more focused.
And you can do that through Security Hub too. So if you integrate, so by default, Guard Duty and Security Hub have an integration. And I'll show you what that looks like here. Under the management, you have automations. And you can essentially create rules that will help you suppress things that you know are fine with. Like your risk level for this is very low. And so for as an example, if you have an S3 bucket that is public, Guard Duty might be like, hey, you have a lot of traffic coming in, it's public, like there can be something anomalous happening in here, but if you're totally okay with that, and because that's the type of use that you have for that S3 bucket, you can suppress that. So instead of getting all of those high alerts, you're now like, I just want to see the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Absolutely. And about the cutting a ticket part too. So customers can reach CERT by going and cutting a support ticket, and support will talk with CERT and will help support and talk about those kinds of things. But like Shannon said, the normal for everyone's environment is different. So Guard Duty is leveraging threat intel on the activities in your environment when you turn the Guard Duty service on. But your normal in your environment is going to vary. So this is my point.
Exactly. And if you're not sure, if you're just still guessing at it, cut a ticket. Honestly, you have unlimited tickets that you can cut with AWS support.
Yeah.
If you have enterprise and you have a TAM, a technical account manager, they can cut a ticket on your behalf directly with our team. So there's two ways that you can go about it. And the AWS Customer Response Team is a free service. And we help customers on the basic level all the way up to enterprise. It doesn't matter. And we don't take preference for enterprise over basic. It's you have a ticket, you have a problem, we're here to help. But for this threat intelligence, it's important to know how to use it. And one thing that I really enjoy about Guard Duty is that you can actually create your own lists. So here, like for example, if you cut a ticket with us because there was a security event and you're like, hey, I've never seen this before, we can provide that information to you. So the IP addresses that were malicious, that are known to be malicious, and have a bad reputation, if Guard Duty didn't pick it up because it hasn't been tagged as a bad reputation at this time, you can actually create your own threat list. And you can do that by hosting it in an S3 bucket and just creating a regular text file. And you can have it as plain text. You can have it as sticks, which Cindy and I have worked quite often with sticks.
Yeah.
But you can also have, if you have like Open Threat Exchange, FireEye, proof point or alien vault feeds, you can also put those in, especially if they are very relevant to your industry. It's important that, yes, information is, there's a lot of information out there, and what you don't want to do is get too noisy and bog down your environments with every single list out there. So you should be very choosy of what type of alerts you really want to know, what's important in your environment, and what is relevant to your industry.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and this is here where you're showing here in the drop down, these are these third-party sources that you said you can pull in threat intelligence information from.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. If I'm a security practitioner who's brand new to this, I just got assigned threat intelligence, right? Put it up on the board, have it up on the screen in the office, something like that. What can that do for me?
So this could help you essentially, if let's say you want to go with Proofpoint and your industry is, I don't know, financial research, you can really dig down into that industry and get to know what exactly you should be concerned about. And one of the things that we absolutely love is called the MITRE attack. Specifically the cloud matrix when it comes to AWS, because it gives you kind of like a really good view of what you could expect a threat actor to perform in your environment for your particular environment, right? So if you go through these and you can understand what to expect with them, then you can build up your security platform and build up your all the processes and
procedures
and everything according to this.
To this framework.
Yeah.
This is a useful tool because it helps. I think it's a broad tool for understanding how organizations are thinking about threat actor activity in the cloud and what organizations are looking for as a whole. So going into those and looking at each ID, going through asking like, do I have run books, playbooks for this? That could be an insightful thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think also, we've talked a lot about customer context, and I think it's really important, not to forget the importance of threat modeling in this. So in terms of you have something that's really valuable to your organization. So it could be data in an S3 bucket, or it could be actually the website has to continually run. And it can look daunting at times, all of these alerts and these different playbooks that you may need to create. But by doing that threat modeling, and there's a superb tool called Threat Composer, which is free, provided by AWS, where it teaches you how to actually do the threat modeling. And by doing that, and then knowing what you care about the most within your organization, it allows you to really focus down on actually doing those playbooks and what your team needs to focus on, because it can look daunting when you first start.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about Threat Composer, like how, if I was this is the first time I've heard about it, maybe let's just take 2 minutes, like where do I start?
Absolutely. So on Threat Composer is there's a dashboard there. So at the so we're just actually so Shannon's frantically looking it up. If you scroll to the top there, Shannon.
Yes.
Just below the picture, there's a demo page. Just below that. There
Here,
you go, live demo.
Live demo. Look at that.
We love a live demo.
Oh, I love it.
We do love a live demo, especially one thrown on us without any planning. So essentially what this does is it allows you to form sentences. So S3 access key is lost, and they're attained by a threat actor, and they delete your bucket. And then you look at what are your mitigations against that. And you can think about it from a identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So identify in terms of that S3 bucket, who has permissions, what has permissions. Don't forget, services can have permissions to delete objects in that bucket. And then going to protect, well, let's stop that, make sure the S3 bucket can't be made public. What's the detections? Should there be greater than 5 objects deleted, it forms an alarm. And the S3, always think about your S3 backup. Have you got it backed up? What's your backup plan? How are you going to restore it? Really, really important sort of questions. So that's a sort of premise of threat modeling, and then using this tool can make it a lot simpler in terms of it explains how to formulate the sentences, and then you can start putting the priorities of them, and if you've got mitigations against them and so on.
Yeah, very neat.
Where does this threat intelligence fall in the shared responsibility model? You brought it up earlier. We have to talk about it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
for people who are new, tell them what is this shared responsibility model, and then tell us where threat intelligence falls.
Fantastic question. So,
Good question.
yeah, so shared responsibility model, really, really important that you understand it in terms of what's your responsibility. And it does change in terms of the services. So you may have something like a platform as a service, in apps, S3 is a really good example of, AWS does most of the horsework behind that. But you're still responsible for the access to it. You're still responsible for the data inside it and the life cycles of those policies. So, that is your responsibility as part of that shared responsibility model. The example and people find it challenging, the shared responsibility model as a concept. My analogy is a laptop. If a laptop bursts into flames, it's probably the manufacturer's fault in terms of that laptop. But if you've done something, downloaded something on that laptop, that is your responsibility. And that sort of model is exactly the same in the cloud. You're being provisioned a service of some sort. There is the access that you need and the data that you need to be responsible for that. But that is why our team exists, to help you when those misconfigurations may happen, and to help you learn from it and so on. So onto the threat detection. So where does the threat intelligence form into this? Again, so there are feeds there. There's Guard Duty, which is a service we absolutely love in terms of what it can do. But there is context, again, that you need to have in terms of how you're using your environment with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, we'll make sure to have a link for that, because this is something that I didn't even know. Sydney, did you know about this?
No, this is news to me. So like all questions on this,
Throw them to me, yeah.
all questions on this stream are genuine coming from me as far as Threat Composer goes. I love these kinds of events because you learn so much, and just watching on air and the things like that. Speaking of which, if you don't follow AWS OnAir on Twitch already, now's a good time to give them a follow. But before we go, we have a couple minutes left. Let's summarize. So if, let's say somebody tuned in about halfway through this episode, what are the key takeaways that we want them to remember from this episode?
I say that threat intelligence is something that is information that you can use to help strengthen the backbone of security of your environment. It's important to not get overwhelmed with all that information, and to be able to identify what is important to you and how are you going to use that threat intelligence to help you during an event.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said about Guard Duty, too, was really neat, that Guard Duty leverages threat intelligence under the hood.
Yes.
So all you have to do as a customer is, if you choose to turn on Guard Duty, well, the activities in your environment are being compared, I believe. How does that work? How would I describe that? Like, how's Guard Duty like making these?
Yeah, so what it's doing is that it's checking out your CloudTrail logs, and it's understanding not only, okay, this is what's happening in your environment, there's certain API calls that are happening, and then it's comparing it to all the intelligence that we've collected, where, hey, this dev user doesn't necessarily have these types of permissions and has never had these types of permissions to be able to create another user and attach administrative policies. That is abnormal. Maybe I will, alert somebody about it.
Yeah.
Or, hey, one of the items that we see most often with threat actors and behavior with them is turning off logging, and that is evasion tactic that they usually do. So if somebody were to have, let's say, S3 access logs turned on to be able to see what's happening, and a threat actor were to turn those off to evade detection, Guard Duty sees that as a threat. and that's when you will get an alert for it.
Yeah, like the CloudTrail logging disabled alert. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
our workshops is actually doing that same alert, TDR 353.
Yes.
We're simulating that because that is something that CERT has seen in the wild.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So
Yeah.
if you're here, go to that workshop. I'm so excited to see it because it's a brand new workshop that
Yep,
you and your team
just,
launched.
Just released it on Friday, and it's
Yeah.
so the workshop is available Wednesday at 10 a.m. at Reinforce, and you can find it in the app as well.
And also tomorrow, I have a live session to show how you can actually automatically respond to that type of alert or
Very
any types of alerts that you get in guard duty. And I'll show what the Lambda code looks like. I'll show all my work, proof of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to see how to actually automatically respond to these events, yeah, tune in tomorrow.
Yeah. And then where can we hear more about what it is that you're doing, or where can I go to get started on threat intelligence with AWS?
So we have a ton of documentations out, but also we have a show called The Safe Room that we do every 2 weeks. It's on Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. We talk about security trends. We talk about how incident response tactics, procedures. We do live tabletop exercises. So if you really want to get into it and learn how to do threat intelligence, but also how to do incident response using that threat intel, you should tune into our show.
It's a great
Ben?
place to start.
Any parting words?
We also have a show for the EMEA friendly times, so security ramp up. Again, it's really recognizing that the security cloud journey is daunting, and we're really just trying to give people that initial start and that initial help towards that. So please join in. It's every 2 weeks, 11 a.m. UK time.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
thank you so much.
Alrighty, thank you. That's all the time we have for this segment here. Please, if you are enjoying this content, you want to see more of it, make sure you subscribe to AWS On Air on Twitch, and we will be back right after this with more.